Welcome to Hashtag Analytics, a conversation between two individuals, one that's super passionate and one that's super opinionated, both around the topic of analytics. I'm Ann Jackson, and I'm joined with my co-host, Luke Stanky. Luke, who do we have on today, and what are we talking about?
Today, we have a very special episode. We have the VP of Product Marketing from Tableau, Mr. Mark Jewett. Welcome to the show. Can't wait to talk about all things. We kind of talked about it beforehand, like we're talking a little bit about the product roadmap. Maybe we're going to talk about Center of Excellences and how to grow and build those teams. Lots of awesome things to talk about. Welcome to the show.
Welcome, Mark.
Thank you so much. I am really excited to be here. It's kind of a chance for a fan person to actually just jump right in. So I don't know, I'm actually kind of nervous. I hope I do good.
Fine. So Mark, why don't you tell us a little bit more about what you do beyond just the fancy title? What's your day-to-day look like at Tableau?
Yes, well, it definitely isn't the fancy title. The things that I do every day have to do with, I'm in the marketing department, so, but I focus on our product. So bringing new products to market and new features and helping make sure that people are clear about what those things are and why we're doing them. The second thing I focus on is partners. So partner marketing is also part of our team, and very seldom in the analytics world is a solution just, one thing. It's oftentimes got to connect to many things, and our partnerships are incredibly important on behalf of our customers. And then the last thing, and I hesitate to say it, but perhaps a favorite is around the community. So we provide a bunch of support for the community through user group programs, and maybe you guys know a little bit about ambassador programs and such things. And so that's what I get to do every day.
Yeah, I'll be very excited to probe into like the hows and whys of the ambassador program, of Zen Master program, all the different supports that are out there, community support. Is very excited to kind of discuss those today.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Mark, we're both Zen Masters. Why don't you tell us from your perspective how the Zen Master program has evolved and what has made you guys, Tableau as a company, continue to invest in this cool program, this recognition program of, dedicated individuals in the community?
Yeah, I think about it for a couple of reasons, and it's some of what makes the Tableau community special. One is it's a place of inspiration, and so the Zen Masters are some of the most inspiring people in the Tableau community, and also extremely generous. And so the combination of those things says that if we can create a little bit of a spotlight or a platform for those people to do what they're awesome at, then get out of the way, honestly, then some really unique and amazing things happen. And so I think that's the fundamental driver behind it. Of course, I love the recognition part of it. These are folks that are have more than earned the right to really be recognized for excellence in a lot of different ways, mastery in many different ways. But yeah, for me, that's almost a secondary to that first thing about just this core fuel for the community, and the inspiration that comes with that, and the fact that as a result of us having a Zen Master program, there are more people out there that are having better discussions and more connections. Like, that's goodness for everybody. So in terms of evolving, gosh, that's a good question. It's still fundamentally where it started, which is around the principles that we want to recognize people for. You can imagine that it's an honor to the degree that there's a lot of people that are pretty interested in that honor, and so we always have our work cut out for us to take a variety of different inputs and do a good job to select a very esteemed and representative crew. And that, I would say, in terms of evolving, that gets harder and harder.
How much do you think that the community has influenced the direction you guys have taken the product? not only from, I mean, obviously there's the community forums and being able to submit ideas, but even just, broader, more strategic, longer term roadmap conversations. How much of that do you think people just out there are responsible for from the community?
Yeah, I've been at Tableau for just about a year, and so a relative newbie, and that also means that I came in from experience in some other companies, and one of the things that I've really recognized is this huge external focus on what do we need to build. Um, it's it absolutely has to be paired with our research and sort of investigating into what's possible in a way that people might not even think to ask for something that they would benefit from. And so we have to be pretty careful that we're thinking about that side of it too. But boy, sitting in the design sessions that we do, the roadmap sessions that we do, the quarterly planning process that we do around the product, the amount of times that we talk about what people are asking for and why they're asking for it it's just very prevalent or pervasive in those discussions. And so and one of the best celebrations that happens when we put new stuff out is when we see people, for example, tweeting about it and saying, look at this cool stuff that I can do. And that's actually something that we measure. We bring some data to the fact that, hey, we nailed it with this one. I'll give you an example of one that we kind of a little bit missed, which was set actions in 2018.3. We knew that was going to be pretty special for people to keep lifting what's possible in terms of interactivity on dashboards and vizzes and things like that. But I would say the community told us we didn't amplify it enough. And we didn't highlight it enough. And so, that informs, hey, number one, let's keep going. Like parameter actions coming up in 2019.2, just another kind of step in that direction, but also making sure we really give people a good idea what's coming when we think it's going to be cool like that. So yeah, I think we take a ton of inspiration from what we get told to do.
Yeah, so I think set actions was exactly that. I looked at it and I think I can remember the tweet I sent was just like, if you haven't used set actions, you are missing out. Like this is where it's at. It brings Tableau in with and matches it with some of the other tools that are out there that are a lot more that were more interactive, and now they're it's like one for one with the same sort of level of that interactivity.
Yeah, we'll keep listening because I'm sure there's a ton more that we can do, but it was a super good step. No
How
doubt.
do you are you guys doing social listening? So when I know that obviously you have the forums that are out there where you're like, submit an idea to the forum. Is there also the piece of like, maybe people don't know that they need to submit an idea on the forum, and there's a way to like socially listen to the requests of the more active community?
Yeah, I think there's more we can do internally at Tableau to in the kind of high scale automated listening side of things. Many of us are really involved in the community, including online and through social. And so, you got folks like Francois, our chief product officer, or Ellie, one of our, Ellie Fields, one of the key people in our engineering organization, who, gosh, they've been in the community for a long time. They're really connected. They meet with a lot of user groups. So I think those channels inform their thinking a lot in terms of sort of high scale listening in intent, getting intent out of it. I think there's probably more we can do there. But even with the listening that we do, man, the list of things that people want us to do is plenty long enough. And so there's always that balance of listening even more versus getting that stuff done. I think that's kind of a constant challenge.
Yeah, and so not to switch topics, but to switch topics, I know that you, as you said, sort of a newbie to Tableau. You came over from Microsoft.
Yeah.
What was the biggest shock to you in terms of culture, or in terms of the environment, the work environment at Tableau? Like you were working on Azure when you left, and now you're working on. It's definitely not. Azure certainly complements Tableau. Like you're going to get data from it and you're going to connect to it. What's that change been like for someone who's moving from one of the 4 or 5 giants, tech giants that are out there to, Tableau is not small, but relatively much smaller than those beasts.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of thoughts on that. One thing for me that I recognized is that Tableau has maintained its kind of scrappiness as it's been growing. It is a bigger organization for sure, and Microsoft's a big organization, but it does a lot of different things. We have this pretty intense focus on data and analytics and helping people see and understand data. Like we wake up every day and think about that, and everybody at Tableau thinks about it that way. And so one thing for me that I wouldn't say is a surprise, but I have to keep in mind is that, yeah, we are better when we get everybody lined up doing everything in kind of a common direction. And that's one thing to do it with 100 people. It's another thing to do it with 4,000. And so that's been a very thoughtful part of Tableau for me. Nonetheless, I don't have a bad thing to say about Microsoft. They're an important partner for us, especially on the Azure front, several different ways. A lot of customers are running, Tableau in Azure. A bunch of customers connect to sources of data that are in Azure. And so, but I've had to take off some of the layers of, armor that I had just to get things done in a massive organization. And that has felt really great at the stage that I'm at in my career. That has felt, really, really great and fun. And the last thing I'll say is by far the biggest surprise to me. If you would have explained everything about Tableau before I came, and then said, which part are you going to kind of call, no way on, it would have been the community. I had read about it. I had, I sort of could get a sense of it from my research that I did. But the sort of the spirit of generosity, of everybody wanting to do better, of just this love of data, of analysis, of making decisions based on data, and by the way, good heart. Every community conversation I have somehow, some way touches on some aspect of doing good. When you add all that up, you could have explained it to me in great detail. I don't think I would have believed it. So that has been a pretty incredible journey for me to sort of see how that all works and be my little piece of it.
I think I can kind of add on just from my experience in the community. I think where it's different for me, and maybe you experience as well, it's just that trust is a tough thing with data. And I think that we get past that. We get much more to this collaboration and problem solving spirit as a result. And that's what I think you see as the byproduct is we're so excited about the opportunities to figure things out. And it's beyond just, the basics with data that you typically find, I think, within most organizations, or when you approach it from most directions or most tools.
And when you think about the tool, like the whole premise of Tableau is to put data in front of people who don't, you have your normal core users, but what you do is you're able to expand to individuals who normally don't have access to the data that they normally would. And you're empowering those business users in the organization. I think that's like, not to drink the juice too much, which obviously we have. We're given our ambassador status with Tableau, like we want and we push every day to make sure that everyday business users are interacting with that tool. And that's, I think, the secret in it is that you will have a happy community when you're empowering them, and the tool is naturally designed to empower them.
Yeah, I think the intention is really important, because I don't run around having people tell me a lot, hey, I want to make sure everyone is using Tableau. That feels like very much a byproduct. Like the spirit that I hear when I get to talk to people that use Tableau and people that are figures in the Tableau community, the spirit that I hear is much more about the outcomes. I really want people to understand data better. I really want people to go out and do good with data. I really, these are the things that I hear over and over. And so Sure, Tableau is a commercial organization, and we would like lots of opportunity to grow and keep on this mission that we're on. But it does feel that there's a bigger spirit and intention there that's pretty core, pretty key to it all.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to ask a hard question now, if that's okay.
Okay.
So
We'll find
right,
out.
the community is really excited about Tableau, and then like you see Gartner come out with its Magic Quadrant for BI, and you kind of like, I wouldn't say that Tableau went down. It's always kind of moving up, but you see these other tools moving closer, and you like it. Like for me, I'm like, whoa, why? Like I've seen what Tableau's put out. Why is that? I like dug into the report a little bit more, and so I was like, I want to understand what the product gaps are. And obviously, as someone who I would imagine on the marketing side, like this is a huge piece of the work that you're doing. Is like there are a couple of areas where there's supposed product gaps, and I'd love to just like get what's your impression of that, or like what's the company stance on the Magic Quadrant for 2019.
Yeah, third-party voices are really powerful in the industry. They have the opportunity. They come with the feeling of not being biased, and so they're an important input. They're important input for us. They're important input for customers that are considering alternatives and options. And so it's important, but it's an input. That's one thing that I remind myself about is that it's quite a process that Gartner goes through to collect a lot of information, and it's a view on the world. And so I think what they have to say is important and meaningful, and I also think there's a bunch of other inputs that are pretty darn important that we make sure that we listen to. And the second thing I'll say is that there's a lot of focus in the Magic Quadrant around the relative positioning of the different vendors in the space, and it's funny. I've been at an organization that did a lot of focus and decided what they were going to do based on the competitors or the vendors in the space and what they were doing. And I gotta say, boy, Tableau does not think that way. It is very much focused on where we started, which is what do we hear from the community? What do we hear from customers? What does our research tell us that we can go and really disrupt the way that people approach data and analysis today? That being said, they talked about some gaps in the report. They talked about some strengths. The strengths felt great. I mean, they essentially said it's a leader in data visualization, especially in terms of ease of use and user enablement. They talked about customers as fans, actually. So they talked about very explicitly the Tableau community and all the value that brings to people that use Tableau. And they talked about the fact that we were sort of making more progress than the industry. And those felt great. We're going to keep challenging ourselves in all of those areas. Some of what they pointed out in terms of gaps, one was around kind of ability to deal with, I forget how they phrased it now, embarrassing, something about ability to deal with complex data.
What they called, I think, mode 2 data sources.
Yeah, the mode 1, mode 2 thing itself is kind of an interesting. I personally haven't heard customers. I haven't been engaged in a lot of customer discussions where we talked about mode 1 and mode 2.
Yeah,
that's Gartner terminology. They need to come up with terminology to explain what they're talking about. I find a customer environment tends to have a little more richness and nuance in it than simple terms like that. But it kind of came down to our ability to support multi-fact tables, more complex schemas, and things like that. And you guys will probably remember, even at Tableau Conference TC18, we were up on stage talking about some of the modeling capabilities that we're working on. That is right in that space of helping solve for some of what Gartner pointed out.
And mode 2, for those curious, is more of I think it was focuses more on like the exploratory, less defined data pieces, and that's where like being able to ask data or being able to do regression on the fly, things like that are sort of fit into that piece, I believe.
Yeah, I think that's right. You mentioned Ask Data, and that's a really interesting one. So in just several weeks ago now, maybe about 5 weeks ago, we put out 2019.1. Very excited for that to hit the street. One of the things that we were excited about in particular was Ask Data, and it's worth talking about. I'd be curious what you guys have kind of seen and experienced with it. I've heard a lot of great reception so far.
Yeah, but
So I don't know what
I
you want
feel
to hear.
like I'd love to just, I think my story on Ask Data is one of the more like the whole ironic stories, because I was like, Ask Data, I did the first time I saw it, I was like, that is, to be frank, I was like, that is a stupid feature. I don't think that's very useful. And then of course, like it's stupid when you don't see the use case for it. But when you then see the exact use case for it, it's like, whoa, that's exactly what's needed. So like earlier this or late last year, I was working with a client, and what they needed were basically a bunch of ad hoc snapshots that an exec could ask at any given point. And we were spending so much time developing all these one-off, like exactly what's coming out of Ask Data. It's like, here's all the different pieces. We're going to take a snapshot and we're going to put it in a PowerPoint in the end, because they obviously don't have access to create these one-offs, but now they can, and they do actually do this, is the CEO will go in and do a basic Ask Data and get the high-level information that's needed for them to make a decision at that one given point. So it's just like, you would have never guessed that, at least in my viewpoint, it's like I would have never seen the use case for it, and then it's right in front of me 6 weeks later, like, here's this exact need for it, and it's like perfect.
Yeah.
And they are using it today, which is the crazy thing.
Love that story. For me, if somebody goes in and they look at a dashboard and they think to themselves, I know the answer is supposed to be here, right? But they have to sort of discern what's going on. And of course, you can, as somebody who authored that work, there's many things that you can do to help point them to the answer that might be on their mind. But the context of me typing in what I'm specifically interested in and having it come back and say, here's the answer to your question, I think is really powerful in terms of approachability. Number one, there's just something that feels more, feels natural, I'll say, to that experience. And then relevance. One of the things that we work super hard on, in fact, we made an acquisition to even improve our capabilities in the area, was to make sure that we really discerned what is somebody asking, right? Because there's a keyword-based search is not going to give you a very relevant return. Understanding the context of what's really being asked is super important for this thing to take off. And so if you know that you can approach this thing, feel like I'm doing a natural act, and get some visualization back that actually answers the question that I asked, that's a pretty sweet spot to hit. So we're ambitious.
And I'll kind of add on. So, like, from my perspective, I mean, this is, you think about natural language processing or querying, and you guys have been talking about this for years, and it's evolved. Like, at least from my perspective, it almost started inside of a dashboard. And then at some point, you guys made almost like a strategic decision to deploy it on server first. And I feel like that was actually a really smart decision when you think about who you're engaging and who you want to use that as a tool. When I saw it originally, and you guys had kind of said, hey, it's going to be on server, I think of it again as another enablement tool. I mean, even as it's released in its current state, with the way it, constructs queries, even if in its basic format, I think that benefits from an educational value of how people actually interact with it. And I also think there's that byproduct that you talk about, which I'm extremely interested in, which is, how do people ask questions of data? And I'm sure you guys are cataloging that and trying to figure that out, and understanding, hey, if this is like a real estate data set, what are the pertinent questions? Because that helps everyone get to the answers they're looking for more rapidly. So I find that part to be intriguing, and I think it's I tell my clients, I'm like, this is a game changer. Like, if you're not keeping up with the pace of innovation at Tableau, you need to start keeping. I told customers or my clients, that buttons were a game changer. Like, buttons are a game changer. And then you think about buttons, and then you're like, Oh, by the way, there's Ask Data here. Like these are significant enhancements to, you know, an ecosystem of analytics that you guys are sharing with your customers.
Yeah. Thank you for saying it that way. It certainly feels that way. I try to make sure we're not inside of an echo chamber and just, you know, pleasing ourselves, but that it's relevant. One of the things that I have found that's interesting, there are certainly a whole bunch of Tableau users that are far more capable than I am, but I'm a reasonably capable Tableau user. There are times where I can get a question asked and answered faster using Ask Data, right? So I'm in the marketing department, and there's things that we think about, like what's the flow of leads to sales and things like that. You know, it actually, I can go to dashboards and look at that information. I'm certainly capable and able to do that. But sometimes I've got just a very specific question, and I want to say, what do my leads look like for February? And man, is it useful and nice to be able to have just that come back and answer that for me. And so even for somebody that's pretty capable, beyond the users that we're trying to increase the approachability for and things like that, I think there's some pretty interesting use cases. And boy, you start to think about it being on your phone. Could you text Tableau and have it send back the answer, you know, while you're on the run? And I think there's a lot there, even for the what we might think of as more the power user, the deep user. So more to come.
Yeah, to that, like the Ask Data I see as you can either give someone a really giant table with lots of filters and to the disdain of every analyst who has to do that. And they're like, but really, that's because somebody wants one number. And to get to that one number, they know what they need to do. And it's often going to be some sort of grid value, but with Ask Data. And this is the value where I've seen it as well. It's just like, I just need to know the raw number of new clients, right? So just type in how many new clients did I have last month, and there it is. So.
Yeah, there it is. There's the answer. So for a long time, Tableau has talked about, asking questions of your data, right? And that became a much easier experience when you could drag and drop and have the power of VizQL in behind it. And, that was a big innovation. This is another step, I think, in how do you ask questions of your data. And I think we're pretty excited to be pushing the envelope here, especially on relevant. If this was just sort of some tricky, bring back keyword, I think that would be really disappointing. But I think as people try this out, they're going to see it's pretty great.
And I like, yes, it is still, it's like the first production version of it. So it's only going to get better, which is the nice thing. Like I have to, when someone's not getting what they want, I have to reiterate, like, you're getting something to start with, and it's only going to get better the next time. And it's going, those features are going to get enhanced. So you can probably have more nuanced questions, and it'll land you an even more nuanced answer.
Yeah, it'll improve for several reasons. Number one is it'll improve as we continue to invest and improve the technology. The second thing it'll improve based on is as we can see usage. That will really help us to learn, and so that'll be an important area. And then the third area is that, look, the truth is that if you take garbage data and you put a beautiful system over it, you still get garbage out of it. And so it's gonna, as people keep thinking about sort of the process element and the data element of how they're being a more data-driven culture, if we can, sort of use that buzzword here, then they're going to have to recognize, or they're going to have to invest in making sure that their data is structured in such a way that it's well suited to answering questions. And so I think it's going to be those three things working together that keeps the train moving.
I want to kind of drill in there because you kind of open the door from my perspective. When I think about Tableau, a lot of people think about like the desktop product, being able to analyze data, but you guys have done a lot of work over the past years. I mean, server's been around for a long time. You have Tableau Prep that you're building up as as another tool in the kit. Like it's a fully fledged platform. So I want to kind of hear from your perspective, how are you guys as a data company addressing sort of like a platform solution as opposed to just sort of like a point solution of making beautiful charts and hosting them?
Yeah, you're right. It's a very thoughtful process. we need to be careful on the one hand not to, solve every problem that ever existed, and be focused on, quality, end-to-end, easy to use, simple experiences to solve important problems. And that's been a hallmark and sort of, in Tableau's blood from very early on. But it is also true that we can help more. And Tableau Prep is a really great example of that. We released almost a year ago now what we now call Tableau Prep Builder, and we could talk about Conductor too. But just to focus on Builder for just a minute, that was born from the fact that we sort of literally and figuratively watched over the shoulders of a whole bunch of analysts out there and saw where they were spending their time. And the kind of the mountain in front of doing great analysis, right, was getting the data in a shape and a level of cleanliness that you could really do something great with it. And so that became the birth of the expansion into more of the data management area. And we did that in a way that's very true to kind of how Tableau thinks about things. Trying to enable the end user or the person that's using it, trying to do it in a very visual way, where the tool is kind of fitting how you think. And so we moved into that space very consciously, both with we think there's a meaningful problem here to solve, and there's a way to do this with Tableau that's kind of different than most people might think about it. So I think that's kind of been the formulation. You could talk about collaboration in a very similar way. Great, I'm able to do this amazing analysis, right? But it's not going to get actioned if I can't get all the right people to know that it's out there, to be able to discuss it, right? Iterate on it, feedback, right? So that became, some of the reasons that Tableau Server was really important and originally born, was to be able to share amongst a group of people and do better analysis across an organization. And so I think that all kind of fits together in something that makes sense in my brain. I don't know, you guys give me some feedback whether you've seen method to the madness.
Like, I think I can see the strategic growth and shift. Like, again, I think the concept of the platform is much more true now than it was before. I think I kind of said this pre-show, is like, I think a lot of the hardcore people are like power desktop users, but there is a bunch of people. For every power desktop user, there's 10 to 50 people that they facilitate sharing data with. So it's a huge opportunity. And I think what I'm really happy about in terms of you guys kind of stepping into that field is exactly your approach and how you go about doing it, because I think that can be beneficial in the long run of how you certify data sources, how you actually visually cleanse your data, how you're building it, and demystifying a lot of what I think has previously been mystified and off in the hands of IT. I mean, I always say that I'm the business user that, infiltrated IT to get what I wanted because I couldn't access my data. And I think there's a lot of, that's the same kind of concept of, I think, how you guys approach a lot of this stuff, which has a lot of benefit and it helps. Honestly, I'd say a lot of people get more savvy. We'll use the term savvy when it comes to data in general.
Yeah. There's a really core idea here that I think is super important, which is, so I think we all accept that data is incredibly important to the organizations that we work with, that there's a lot of value to be garnered out of the data, and that the competitive sort of organizations, or the most successful organizations into the future, are going to be the ones that sort of figure that out. I think we probably can all agree on that. And I think also we agree that, hey, data is really sensitive, right? Data is really important, and who gets it, who gets to see it, all of those things are equally important. And so we start to talk about this area of governance. We can't leave governance behind because data is important to make decisions to the business. I think what there's an ongoing debate about, and certainly Tableau has a perspective on it, and I'd love to hear yours, is that the way to get there, to thread those two needles, doesn't start with control. It actually starts with empowerment. And it's a pretty different idea. I've been working with IT teams for more than 20 years, and it's a pretty different idea. I can tell you from that mindset. It usually starts from control, and what that results in is, okay, I'm I forget the words that you used, but I'm going to infiltrate, right, the systems and get what I need, right? Well, of course, I'm going to do that in some tool that's not governed at all, and I'm going to send that around an email, and it's going to get posted somewhere, and heaven help us if it's going to get posted outside the organization. Flip that around and think about a world where you start first with, how do we draw people in, right? How do we enable them to answer their stuff, right? Because they got a job to do just like we do. And if you start at that place, right, and then you say, oh, by the way, when you get your copy of Tableau, your access to Tableau, you need to take this class, and here's your sign-on credentials. Now we know when you're signing in, and what you're looking at, and what stuff's getting used, and do we have enough capacity to serve up the vises so everybody gets the right performance. And there's a lot that happens that you can now see what's going on. And so I think that debate is still playing itself out in different ways.
Yeah, I'm like living this. Like
Do tell.
I've worked with a number of organizations, and the focus on empowerment is so important. But there is such a natural tendency to assume that governance is a negative thing and it requires control. Like, I've heard, the number of times I've heard is that governance and enablement are they're like juxtaposition. There are two sides of whatever. And I'm just like, no, it doesn't have to be that way. If you create an environment that is inviting for people to come in and get what they want, then you have the ability to grow the organization's capacity for analytics. If you create the things that the business analysts or whatever business unit wants, they're going to come to you and ask for that support. You can't be in a place where you are the one person or the one team that does all the work and then supplies an answer to them. That ultimately creates a giant gap in the business. This is, you just said, the organizations that will thrive and succeed in the future are organizations that are going to empower their business. There are only a handful of organizations that things are heavily automated. The rest of them involve people. So many decisions amongst people. And when you put things behind layers and require them to come to you, that slows down the processes, it slows down innovation. And when you have your competitors out there who are realizing that when you empower and you get them a step closer, you're ultimately going to fall another step behind. And that's just like, that's why I said I've lived it. I've seen it, especially in the last few years, where it's like, there's so much fear in that if you empower, you're going to lose somehow the control, and therefore someone else is going to get promoted over you. Like, it shouldn't be that way. If you are providing and I know I'm ranting, but it's like, if you provide the access, you'll be the one recognized for the ability to help grow the organization.
Yeah. I think there's enough heroes out there that it's starting to sink in. I think, and my advice to an organization that is feeling nervous about that is start with your data that's less sensitive. There's all kinds of data that's not as sensitive that still is meaningful in your business decision making, and sort of prove it to yourself. And so yeah, we're working with a lot of organizations on what does it mean to be a more data-driven culture. In fact, we've been working on some stuff. It's not quite publicly shared yet, but we've got some stuff coming pretty soon here called the Tableau Blueprint. And the Tableau Blueprint is exactly that. Yes, there's a technology aspect to being a more data-driven culture, but there's more than that. The capabilities are definitely going to be about the technology, but they're also going to be about the people, sort of the proficiency level of people, both your intense user group as well as your long tail of users, and just some of the more baseline data literacy things.
And I would say from this, like, I've heard inklings of the blueprint, and I think what it is most reminiscent and how like was very really opened my eyes is Anne said she came like she was a business user and then moved in and how she could I was the same way like I worked in the business and I needed access to all these things and then I was put in the position of like figure out how to enable our organization via Tableau and the one thing that really like it really drew me in was the Tableau Drive methodology, the white
Yeah.
paper. It was just like, this is how it's supposed to be done. Like I took that plus a few other pieces of literature that I read, and it was like, I need to implement this to the T. And by doing so, it really like set us off in the right journey. And I feel like if it's anything, if the blueprint is anything like the Drive methodology, if people are willing to follow, uh, they're going to see that growth.
My feeling is you're going to be really excited by what you see. I'm not going to make any comparisons between the things, but I think the level of specificity, the point of view that it takes on a prescriptive sort of thought process about how do you do this. Of course, everybody's own mileage is going to vary, and it needs to be flexible. But and then also just the thought across not just the technology, but the people, the process, inclusive. I think I'll be really excited to hear you guys' feedback and find out what we need to do next. By the way, one of the most amazing things about it is community. And so what am I talking about? One of the fascinating things that we've gotten to see in a variety of different customer conversations is they have taken a note of what's going on in the Tableau community and they're doing it in their organization. Different manifestations of it, but hey, let's roll out, let's pick your internal social media platform, right? And let's use that as a forums, right? Or let's use that as a discussion group. Let's start an internal user group that's just specific to our organization. Let's do some contests. We've seen people, sort of take notes on the Iron Viz stuff and say, whoa, what would that look like to do in our organization? And then run those. Comes back to center of excellence, right? And what does it mean to have inspiring, people that are there to enable a whole cast of characters, a whole organization? And so that might be one of the things that I'm most excited about Tableau Blueprint and what we're doing around community is within an organization, all the benefits that can kind of come from that.
And I might just be like, this is paraphrasing from what I'm seeing, is I think that one of the trends this year for again, based on my experiences, is that center of excellences are starting to figure it out. And they knew that they sort of knew what they kind of needed to do. But this year it's just been, I've seen a number of organizations figure out the pieces that they need to put together that aren't just from the technical side, but on the community side to help grow that center of excellence. Like you have to have someone who's a true evangelist for the tools and technologies within the center of excellence. So just like an analytics center of excellence, you need people that are experts and that love the product and can show individuals across the organization of what can be done. It's really like people who know the art of the possible.
Well, the teach a person to fish metaphor is, I think, a really important one in the community efforts. Workout Wednesday, great example of that, right? I'm not going to say here's all the answers, right? And now you know it, right? There's a workout part, there's a learn it part, there's a, figure it out. The act of doing that means you're going to know it way better. You're going to bring that to it the next time. You're going to pay it forward and teach the next person. And so the kind of stuff we see in the Tableau community, I think, is let me be bold. I think it's going to change the way IT gets done. I think the concept of internal, user community is such a powerful one. I think it can break down some of the tension that's existed in the IT and business relationships over time. I really think it's going to change it. So, just think you guys are on the cutting edge.
So it's fun because I feel like so I'm obviously, this has been my world as well. Like the fact that we're having a conversation about how we change hearts and minds, and we're not talking about how we drag and drop or how we do something like literally the widget, the components of how to do the thing. We're talking about how we enable other people is huge. I'm curious from your perspective when you think about the Tableau blueprint or how we're going to get to this center of excellence concept or how that's going to really ignite since it's been around. Is leadership owning that? Is it coming from the business side? Is IT there? What does that look like? I mean, obviously there's friction. We all know that it's there, but who is driving it, or what does it look like when IT drives it versus the business?
Yeah, I'm kind of focused on, in my own personal journey on it, I'm kind of focused on two groups. One is the ones that are doing it successfully. I want to just put them up there and show a big spotlight. And somebody that jumps to mind on this, I hope he doesn't mind if I call him out, but Mitchell Grewer at Cargill. I had a chance to see Mitchell talk about what they're doing around internal user community and the relationship between more central kind of analytics teams and then the business groups. And the types of benefits that they're getting, no trouble tickets on Tableau, right? Because they get solved through the community. Hundreds of users participating in Viz contests internally, and even having senior staff be judges in those Viz contests. That to me sends a whole message to the organization that says being data driven is really important. We're going to do better at this. And somebody like a Mitchell that just gives you a bit of a beacon if you believe in that, but you're not exactly sure how you're going to get there. That's one group I'm kind of focused on. The second one is leaders in more central groups like IT that do believe that those groups are going to have to morph with the times, and that they are critical to business outcomes, and that the contention is not a useful thing for the company to succeed, and yet they're looking for patterns that work. That's something that I can bring to Tableau. I'm capable of having those kind of discussions with those types of leaders and helping sort of chart a path. So if we take something like the Tableau Blueprint, we work with our partner community to help us all be using sort of the same mindset and same approach and terminology. Then we focus on those couple of communities. I think that will help a ton. And boy, my ears are wide open for other things that we can do, because I think it's a rich area of opportunity.
Having strong senior C-level evangelists just saying, we know we need to do this to get better and grow, is, regardless, you have to have a catalyst, whether it's one person that's pushing it up, or one person or many people at the top pushing it back down. There's got to be someone who's not just partially inspired because they read that it's important. It's that they have to believe and be willing to prioritize it. And I think that's the key piece, like wrapping that all back in. It's like, that's the big piece. You got to have people that believe that data is going to make a difference, and not just in the variety of like, let's put it in an Excel spreadsheet and let's get it out. We need to automate and save time, get to insights faster.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's a combination of the sponsorship and belief and underwriting of the senior influential people, together with people that can pull it off, right? That's important too. And that's why when you go to the Tableau conference, some of my favorite sessions are seeing people that are pulling it off, right? I like the things about what's the product do, and those are definitely amazing. But seeing Chick-fil-A, talk about how they are becoming a more data-driven culture, and talking about actually stuff that she's learned in the Tableau community, right, that she's brought back to Chick-fil-A, I find that really fulfilling. And
I think Kelly is out there, and like I know that they have a lot of really great talent who are once again the big piece of having an evangelist for analytics in the organization.
Yeah, super good point, for sure. Well, what else do we want to talk about?
So this might be a tricky topic, but I'm going to say it because I've encountered this a lot recently. I've experienced this myself as a Tableau customer. The pace of innovation you guys are driving at is insane right now. Is that limited to me? And like I say that, I underscore that with, don't stop, please don't stop. But are you conscious of that pace of innovation, and what, help me deal with it?
And you're just not working enough hours. Let's move on to the next question, please.
And that's funny, because when we were talking about like 10 or 18 2018.1 to 2018.2.
Yep.
And it's like, I don't even look, before when there was like 10.1 to 10.2, there was like small version changes. And now it's like, these are major releases between each step.
Yeah.
And the innovation is, it's awesome. And it's, we trying to keep organizations up with that pace is like, back to Ann's question.
Like, I'm struggling, Mark. Like,
Well, the good news is I've solved it all, and I will now give you the secret decoder. No, my personal feeling, and I can say this from experience from the experience from Azure, is a very similar set of challenges, which is tech right now. In a world where things are more and more delivered on a continuous basis, with subscription offers that are, have an expectation of more and more. And by the way, I think we need to do more and more things to make it easy to get to the latest stuff, right? Because it's one thing to understand what's coming, but then people within organizations may not have access to it. And so I have pretty bold ambitions around what we can and should be doing, even with our Tableau Online offer, and what we can do to keep making that more and more applicable or usable by folks, because then we take a barrier out of the way to get the technology to people. Then it's okay, so it's there. How do I even know it's there? And then what's the way for me to learn it? Because by the way, I've got a day job or two or three. I'll tell you, I've been hearing this a lot. I had breakfast with Eva Murray when I was in London a couple of weeks ago, and it was the first thing she asked me about. And so you guys are the cream of the crop in terms of, like Tableau stuff, right? And if you're telling us that, oh my goodness, that's got to be at the front of our mind. And so there is a lot of stuff that we have to be as innovative in terms of learning as we do in terms of the product. And there are things that we do. We try and do these free videos. We don't try and do it. We do these free videos with the intention of helping you be able to watch a 5 or 6 minute thing and understand something better. We are with the 2019.1 release. We put Ask Data out there in a public forum where you could go try it without having to, do it on your own server instance, et cetera. So we're trying to get the barriers out of the way of people being able to try it with a data set and things that are set up. We're thinking through scenarios about little snippets that maybe we deliver in Twitter, or Facebook Lives that are just, like, hey, here's 2 minutes on this thing, easy, fast, easy to learn. But to me, one of the big answers to this question is all of you, or let me say all of us, which is, I think one of the biggest places that one of the biggest foundations or assets that we have to solve this problem is workout Wednesday, makeover Monday, Tableau tip Tuesday, all the variety, the blog posts that the community is doing. I think Lindsay Poulter was one of the more influential figures in people helping start to see what was possible with set actions, right? That's not a Tableau employee that's sitting down to do a Tableau task. That's somebody that's just like, wow, this is really cool. I want the world to understand what's possible on these things. And so it's going to be a combination of those. I don't have a silver bullet, though. It's a tough problem. We're not going to stop innovating. That's pretty important too. So we'll have to figure some things out together, I think.
I mean, I say it all, like, again, very good-hearted. I mean, I literally have conversations that compel people to move forward because of new features, and I think that's really powerful. Like, it's not a joke. You need to, you've got an investment. You need to get the most out of it. So I think it's really amazing that you guys are that you've positioned yourself to be in that phase, in that space. I'm still sweating to keep up, but I'll happily.
We'll keep taking we'll keep considering new ways to do it, and we're certainly would be excited to hear ideas that people have. Yeah, we have a whole academic effort too. I mean, I don't know your guys' awareness of that, but we really believe in sort of training the workforce of the future, not just on Tableau, but importantly on data, right? So creating a data native, people talk about digital native. I'm thinking about data native, people coming out of class where uh, analyzing and getting insights out of data is on the same level as doing a presentation or sending an email or so. It's just one of the tools that you have. So it's and we're mainly at the college level right now, but we got to get down into my wife's a
Yep.
third grade teacher. I would love her to be teaching data. So
Can you talk a little bit more? Like, I just think, but I'm now like an old dinosaur. It does this, things go by very fast, and it's like, oh, half a life ago I was starting college, and now it's data wasn't anything to like. It was like, how can I skip out on a stats class? How do I work around that? Because it's never going to be used. Like, who uses data at
right.
that point? Uh,
Boo.
Exactly. Now I'd be very curious, because you do spend so much time with academic programs. What's the pulse within colleges? Are they bringing in do we see more integration of data, like the Tableau academic side? How much of it are we seeing colleges sort of start to integrate, not just the concepts of understanding and using data, but really the functional tools that they're ultimately going to end up using? I just imagine like half of the people that I know SQL, and they didn't have a single, like, there's no SQL in college class.
Right. It's such an important area. I got a ton of passion around this. So, Tableau, we're doing several things. We have a program where we'll give away to verified students and to teachers. We give away Tableau software, and we did that on the order of 250,000 plus last year alone, which is a huge amount of people. Now, what are they encountering in their classes to help them better understand it, right? What are they doing to prepare to understand the follow-on opportunities in the workplace? And so, in fact, I spent, I think I can say this, I spent the end of last week with USC, with the Marshall School and other schools down there, talking about, hey, what does this, what does it look like to arm the future workforce with the right data skills? And we certainly believe that Tableau has an important role to play in that. But part of it was beyond just, folks that are in obvious analytical careers. That's one group. That's an important group. It spans a lot of different careers, but it's actually kind of the small part of the pie, in my opinion. The big part of the pie is we all have to be good with data. We all have to be influential in our presentations. We all have to get insights and make better decisions as a result of it. So I'm equally as interested in penetrating or making progress with that wide group of students. And at USC, it was really interesting. I think some of them were really getting it, like, somebody might be in this, pursuit, this field of study, and maybe that doesn't jump out as an analytics one, but they need to be influential. They need to stand in front of a group and be able to present a coherent, case to do something. And so it was a really great discussion. And I would say that's the bolder ambition, is to arm every student with those skills.
I think it's happening. So to kind of add on just a story from my perspective, I went into my alma mater, Arizona State University, recently and talked in front of a data-driven marketing class, right? These are exactly what we're
Amazing.
talking about. This is marketing, and I'm presenting, real work that I've done for clients. And these are people that, their main jam is not data, it's not math. This is a byproduct of it, but they can see the value of it. So I know those conversations are happening. I told them, one of the reasons I got an MBA was so I could continue to have a free license of Tableau, because I feel like it's that important in your life. You have these resources at your disposal. You are not leveraging what's out there in the world if you're not taking advantage of it. Because I think you're absolutely right. Like, there's not going to be a day that goes by where someone's not encountering some sort of data or has to use some sort of fact or insight to prove a point, to drive change.
Yeah. That's and it's the same with us. Like, we internally have like a Slack channel that is strictly dedicated to higher ed, just because it's like,
Oh, that's cool.
we see that as a pervasive gap, and it's like, oh, well, we have experts that live and breathe in different contexts of the real world, and people are like, they do all these case studies in undergrad, and then they're going to go out and they're going to be like, we're not doing any of the we're not doing any of those things because no one taught us the actual skills that besides the case study. But it's clear that you could just like clearly put those in undergraduate programs, and that's just like, why are they not in undergraduate programs? Why are they not in high school? Like, there's a prime
They will
opportunity.
be. Yeah. They this is I'm kind of with Ann. This is coming. There's those that are doing it and those that just haven't realized they're going to be doing it. It's just that core to the skills of, well, of now, I would argue, but certainly of the future. So yeah, I'm really proud of the work that we're doing to enable Tableau, or to enable Tableau with students, and some of the certifications that we're doing, and giving away the free product, and we're doing some more around curriculum, helping professors sort of integrate it into their curriculum a little more seamlessly. So all kinds of things that we're trying to do to help get to the 500,000 and the million students and beyond. So,
Luke and I'm speaking for Luke, we've been obsessed with Iron Viz, the Tableau Public Contest,
yes,
at TC every year. I want to know what Iron Viz means to you and how important it is that people participate, what Tableau learns from people that contribute to that.
Yeah, I distinctly remember the tweet I sent out when I was standing there in New Orleans for TC18, and soaking up everything that is Iron Viz. And it was along the lines of, so for those of you that are participating in this, whether in the audience, whatever, I defy you to go explain to somebody that's not part of this what's going on, and get them to believe you. Because it's pretty much impossible to believe, and the product on the stage is amazing, but just the energy around it, and I think what's important is everything that leads up to it. That to me is kind of, there's the sort of the spectacle and the pizzazz of what happens on the stage, and I think that's a lot of fun, and because that's the final stop on that journey, it's notable, but the journey is really important. I love the tagline they just put up on the new Iron Viz page, which is "Win or learn, you can't lose." And that to me is just the whole spirit of it. We talked about Mitchell Greer earlier, and talked about Viz contests inside of his organization, and the way he figured it is that, hey, hundreds of people participating in a Viz contest, there's a winner, and that's all fine, but guess what? Hundreds of people now have a better idea what they can do with data, right? And be inspired. And there's something about the competitive spirit and kind of the concept of gamifying things. It's just a really effective way for people to inspire other people, for people to learn. So that's, I think, why it's really important. The fact that we can pull it off still shocks me. But yeah, we're getting ready to do it all again. And they just launched, you may have seen, they just launched the European qualifiers around a not very important topic of energy and sustainability.
I think
thought,
from what I heard, Anne was quickly trying to get citizenship in one of the eligible countries, just because.
I threatened. I've insisted that I would still participate, whether I'm eligible or not. Because I'm planning on going to Europe anyway. I defy to see what would happen if I, were to show up.
Ooh, I love it.
Because it's such a, you think about the competitive spirit and doing something. Some of the most some of the opportunities I've had in my life to contribute to that, I've learned a lot along the way. So I think it's just like, why would I not? You can't keep me from creating a Viz.
Yeah. Damn you. You can't hold me back. I just got to, when I was at the London Tug a couple of weeks ago, I was joined, I presented there around 2019.2. The beta was just arriving, and we talked about some of the cool features there, parameter actions and the new vector maps, and even just seemingly simple things like replace worksheet, which probably is going to change people's lives. But the co-presenter at that tug was Corey, one of the 3 contestants with last year's Iron Viz. And he talked about sort of his journey. And it was a very captivating story. It just reminded me of all the amazing stuff that happens to pull that thing off. So there's some great blog posts out there right now about how we can improve. And there's certainly areas that we're cognizant about, the applicability of what happens on stage to how people really use Tableau in a business environment. That has me really thoughtful. As versus that kind of spectacle element that we talked about. So I think that's a super interesting conversation. Diversity on a number of different sort of vectors, I think, is a really important discussion when it comes to, well, shoot, not just Iron Viz, but Tableau community and Tableau at large. We mirror the rest of the industry and the world with a lot of opportunities to do better on that stuff. And we could be a beacon of great. And I think we have steps before that's the case. So there's places that I see that we can do even more, but it's a really important part of the fun that we have in the Tableau community, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I mean, I can only speak for myself, but you can consider me a contestant. The goal is to win the first feeder. That's the main thing. Is if you don't win the first feeder, then you just have to do all of them, right? That's how I position myself this year.
And
what happened?
You forget that I am the all-time loser. I have gone 9 straight losses. I take pride in those losses.
Hey, Luke, win or learn, you can't lose.
I have 9 straight learning moments.
Learning, yes.
I'm the all-time learner from Iron Viz.
You're the first place learner, man.
Yes, there's a lot that can be said about being the first place learner.
I love it. Oh, goodness. Hey, talking to you guys is a total blast. I can't tell you what a privilege it is to have a chance to chat. I hope I said an interesting thing or two, and I would love to keep up all these conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's tough when we all love the same thing. Like, I don't want to be an echo chamber, so I think we really stretched the bounds of the conversation and talked a lot about important topics. And I really like seeing where the conversation is going, specifically related to data-driven organizations and how Tableau is thinking about it, how you're thinking about it, just as an industry leader, just in the space, right? And how we are approaching it as people that are, evangelist advocates of that sort of movement. So I've really enjoyed it, and hearing more specifically about just how you guys are thoughtful about various things.
Yeah, it's a total pleasure.
Yeah, what Ann said.
All right, first place.
I'll be looking for a first place t-shirt when it's all said and done.
It's in the mail.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate the time.
Yeah, talk to you guys soon. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mark. Have a great day, guys.
Hey, I have somebody that would love to say hi, you guys.
All right.
Come. What? It's Jordan Scott, community extraordinaire. Hold on.
The whole time.
No, she doesn't sit here and make sure that I don't say anything bad. That is not her. Yeah. Hold on. I'm going to give her the headset. Hold on.
Hello. How are you guys?
Hi. Good.
What's going on?
Good. I just wanted to come say hello.
I like to print out my favorite Vizes on. It's just not quite hung up yet on the wall. Sorry. I'll get to that. So I've got I don't know if people have seen that one yet.
Ooh.
Oh yeah. It's just this one spot in my office that's not quite
You can just imagine, everybody listening or watching can just now imagine that there's just this one blank spot and every inch of the wall and the ceiling is filled, except for like this one piece, because clearly it's everywhere.
Wait, I heard someone likes cats. I have a cat on my floor even with a pinwheel in its head.
Perfect.